And I think that distinction is so important because you choose the right leader and you realize it's not about him. For Peter Obi, it's never been about him. Even as a person, his personality, I think, is very telling. He's one of the simplest men I have ever known, and I've known him for many years. And he is genuine and consistent. The person I knew 15 years ago is still the same person in terms of his values. And he's very curious. He wants to learn. And I think that's such a good quality to have in a leader. And also, there's a wonderful humility. We lack that in this country. There's a sense, I think, in Peter Obi that he's accountable to the people.
Good day and welcome to Naija Anchor News Let's Talk Politics, where we bring you the voices and views shaping Nigerian political landscape. Today we are looking at the award-winning author Chimamanda, who has once again reaffirmed her support for Peter Obi, describing him as a leader who is not desperate for power, unlike many others. In a recent interview, Chimamanda said, Peter Obi wants to serve, not to rule out of ego. She emphasized that he doesn't need to be president, but wants to because he genuinely cares about Nigeria.
Part of the reason I don't like to speak speculatively about things I'm not sure of, so we don't know who's a candidate. But I will say that my support for Peter Obi, right, is something that I do not hesitate to proclaim or talk about, because I can tell you what it is rooted in. My support for Peter Obi is rooted in my love for this country. It's rooted in my belief that with the right leader, we can be better than we are. We can create a country where people feel included, a country that is not corrupt and does not tolerate corruption. Again, if you have the leader who's setting the tone, it makes all the difference. And I think that he's also a person who he doesn't need to be president. He wants to be because he cares about Nigeria, but he doesn't need to be, and that is a very important distinction. The people who are desperate to become president, not because they have any good intentions for the country, but because of their own personal egos. And I think that distinction is so important because you choose the right leader and you realize it's not about him. For Peter Obi, it's never been about him. Even as a person, his personality, I think, is very telling. He's one of the simplest men I have ever known, and I've known him for many years. And he is genuine and consistent. The person I knew 15 years ago is still the same person in terms of his values. And he's very curious. He wants to learn. And I think that's such a good quality to have in a leader. And also, there's a wonderful humility. We lack that in this country. There's a sense, I think, in Peter Obi that he's accountable to the people. He doesn't think that somehow he will lord it over people. Peter Obi is not a person who expects you to thank him for doing his job as a leader, because to him it's his job. And so these are the reasons that I support him and that I will continue to support him in whatever way I can. But I don't want to talk in specifics about how will I feel if he's not the presidential candidate. I don't want to think about that yet because we don't know. We don't know what will happen.
Chimamanda was a strong supporter of Peter Obi in the 2023 presidential election and even wrote a bold letter to US President Joe Biden criticizing the credibility of the election. She also expressed her worries about AI and social media's impact on the younger generation.
I'm reasonably worried, but I also don't think it's a Nigeria-only problem. It's a worldwide problem. And I think it's the result of unwillingness as a society to question these companies in San Francisco that are run by young men who might not be the most emotionally literate or the most emotionally intelligent people, deciding for us what our future as human beings will be. Right? So in other words, AI is an example. Everybody's sort of making noise about AI. I think that we really need to collectively sit down as a human race and think about what we want AI to be. Otherwise, it's going to destroy creativity. It's just not going to be good for us. I think the same thing with social media. When social media came up, we were told it was going to unite people, everyone will get along, but it hasn't. In fact, so studies have shown, and this study was conducted in Western countries, but I think it's true really for everywhere, that for young people, the more social media you consume, the more likely you are to be depressed and anxious. Yeah. Because social media isn't real in many ways, and when you're young and impressionable and you spend so much time on social media, it's bad for you mentally. So that worries me. Reading, and of course social media also rewires our brains. So that's why young people don't have good attention spans. It's from too much sort of short-term screen things that just rewires your brain, so you're not able to focus. So that worries me. But at the same time, I think we can fix it. I think it's possible to change it if we are determined. I know that there's a movement now in the US to, and I think it's France also that has, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but there's a country that has passed a law which a child has to be 16 before they can get Instagram and Twitter and whatever, which I think is very good. Actually, I would make it 21. I'll make it 55.
Whoa. I'm not sure if I saw that story. I think it's Switzerland or one of them, right? I saw that story.
Because if people, social media is okay if you can consume it in little bites, but the whole idea of social media is to be addictive. I mean, it's a feature of social media that it is built to be addictive. It is built to reduce your attention span. That is the point. That is the goal. So the longer you stay on social media, the higher the revenue from ads that the social media companies get. So in other words, you're being used, and we don't seem to realize that, your generation. But I think the more education people have, so now there are many parents who are being very careful and intentional about their kids and social media. Schools in the US are now saying no phones for young people. I think things like that, if it gains momentum, we can change it. So people start to understand what this whole thing actually means. You should not wake up and start looking at your phone until the end of the day. It's just bad for you on every level.
She added that what worries her most is what the ordinary Nigerians are going through.
And the suffering of ordinary people. Life has become so hard in Nigeria, and for me, I can see it. I can see it in, for example, how people who were formerly kind of securely middle class, and not that life was rosy for them, but they got by, are now people who beg and who I need. That worries me greatly. The level of suffering, how expensive food has become. I think that the biggest political judgment that one can make is about the ordinary lives of the people. So, when people say the stock market, personally, I don't really care about that sort of thing. What I care about is what's that person who has, almost a minimum wage job, how is that person getting on in this economy? It's the suffering that worries me the most. It's terrible, and I think when people, and it's not to excuse crime or anything, but I think that when life gets very hard, even people who before would not have considered certain things suddenly are willing to. And that's dangerous for society. Yes, because people who don't win elections end up becoming people in office in Nigeria, and we all pretend that somehow that didn't happen. We're very good in this country at the art of pretense. We know what is true, but we don't say what is true, right? But it's not even just that people who didn't win elections then take office. It's that when they take office, they don't make an effort. If I stole an election, I would go in there and I would try to win the love of the people by doing everything right, by being transparent, by putting people in my cabinet who are the best technocrats, by focusing on achievements of people, like real achievements. I would go out of my way to do well, right? To make life better. I would go out of my way to make Nigeria better, but it's just not happening. And leadership in the end makes all the difference. You have a leader who's committed. It can change. First of all, it sets the tone, just the tone alone. If you have a leader who's simple, who's transparent, who's open, who thinks about the people, who is not corrupt, without even actually doing anything, you see the people underneath him follow, because they realize my leader is not corrupt, I better not be corrupt because I'll get into trouble. That alone makes a difference. And we're saving money. If there's no corruption, I think that we've solved three-quarters actually of Nigeria's problems. So leadership is so important. I think it is really the most important thing. It's not about policies. It's not about the people often talk about Nigeria has so many we have so many natural blessings in the name of such things as we have gold in Zamfara, we have oil, we have tin, when all of that. You can have all of that. If you have a bad leadership, you're not going to benefit from it.
She also advises young Nigerians to avoid crime. even though it may be tempting due to bad governance?
My advice to you is, first of all, stop it. My second advice is, I will beat you if you don't stop it. No, seriously. You know, that kind of quick money syndrome is, yes, it's a terrible thing, but it's the result of something bigger. It's because you're living in a society in which there is no hope. You're living in a society in which you cannot look and see a pathway that is reasonable, that can provide a good life for you. And so suddenly you believe in these schemes and things, but I think what I would say to young people is often they fail. I mean, there really is no free lunch. I mean, if you're going to do something quick that's going to get you money quickly, a lot of money, that thing is most likely criminal, and it just most likely will not work out. If you have sense, it's not the way to go. There's still things that one can do. I really believe in young people focusing on bettering themselves. I really believe in accumulate knowledge, like learn, and then you might find in that you're learning small ways in which you can improve your life. But also just the idea of having a moral core, it's so important, right? It's important to have a sense of what is right and what is wrong. And your life really, there's something different about living a life in which you know that you have a moral core, you have a sense of morality. There's something meaningful about a life like that.
So as a Nigerian, Chimamanda's comments reflect what many of us feel. Tired of leaders who play politics like a game. It's not about taking side, but about demanding better. If Peter Obi truly stands for change, then let action match the image. Nigerians are watching, and we want results, not just sweet talks. As we look forward to 2027, Chimamanda's voice adds to the growing chorus of Nigerians demanding leaders with character, not desperation. So could Peter Obi be the answer again? Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more bold talks right here on Naija Anchor News Let's Talk Politics.